AM 560, The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Welcome back to The Morning Answer. I'm John Anthony. My good friend, my buddy, my pal, former ABC 7 reporter, Charles Thomas. Charles, I'm up and awake now. That coffee has kicked in, and I feel like, look, I'm fiddling with the pen over here. I'm excited. What happened? What's been happening with these confirmation hearings, Charles? In my opinion, it's just like one big high school-ish type of scenario. What's going on? Yeah, he said, she said, you are this, you are that.
Yeah, the Democrats are making a fool of themselves.
Yeah.
Because I think that the American public just a couple of months ago voted and they spoke, and now they're putting on a show in Washington. But I think people are sick of it.
Yeah.
Because it just shows where they're really coming from.
Yeah. I mean, hey, you know, Charles, one of them, in my opinion, you remember I've been teasing this since the beginning of the show, but how does baby onesies play into the RFK Jr. nomination hearing?
They are selling what's called onesies. These are little things, clothing for babies. One of them is titled Unvaxxed, Unafraid. Next one, and they're sold for $26 a piece, by the way. Oh my God. Next one is No Vax, No Problem. Now, you're coming before this committee and you say you're pro-vaccine. Just want to ask some questions. And yet your organization is making money selling a child's product to parents for $26, which casts fundamental doubt on the usefulness of vaccines. Can you tell us now that you will, now that you are pro-vaccine, that you're going to have your organization take these products off the market?
Senator, I have no power over that organization. I'm not part of it. I resigned from the board.
Yeah, that was just a few months ago. You founded that. You certainly have power. You can make that call.
Give me my onesie, Charles. I want my onesie. Joining us to discuss this and more is Ramsey. I believe the name is Touchberry. He's a congressional reporter for the Washington Examiner. Ramsey, did you order your onesie?
Morning. Thanks for having me. No, unfortunately, I am a few years grown out of those.
Hey, they sell them for adults now, so we should contact the Children's Health Defense to see if they have the adults and send one to Bernie Sanders' office.
Well, if they got them that big for me, then I guess I might be able to fit into one.
When you look at this confirmation hearing with RFK Jr., he listen. There are questions. I thought he answered them. I thought at least when they allowed him to answer the questions. But do you think he gets through? And how important it is because when no one, and I've been saying this all morning, no one challenged the substantive argument of what he was discussing about the endemic, plandemic, whatever it's called. I forget it. I just had a brain freeze. But as it relates to these children and childhood obesity and all of these vaccines and all of these drugs that are on, no one challenged that. Why do you think that's so?
So he's still, his nomination is still up in the air in terms of whether he gets confirmed. There's still some key Republican holdouts like Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins. You've got Bill Cassidy. Those are three key Republicans who are viewed as swing votes on this. He did end up convincing Senator Tom Tillis yesterday, who told me after the hearing that he was a lean yes on RFK. And then, of course, you always have the wild card of Mitch McConnell, who for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth ended up voting against him. And so, on RFK, Republicans can afford 3 defections. And right now, it's just going to be really, really tight. He's got another hearing today before the committee that oversees health matters. And on that committee, Bill Cassidy chairs. And then you've got Collins and Murkowski as well. So he's got, 3 of the most crucial people that he needs to sway today. And it'll be interesting to see if he does that and what sort of questions or concerns those senators are most worried about when they try to get some answers from him on certain things.
What about the chances of a recess appointment, the dynamic that takes place before that can happen? Do you think that's even possible? And is Donald Trump that committed to RFK Jr. to go that route?
Recess appointments in general are actually something that would most likely hinder his ability to get more of his nominees through. It stops, any sort of progress for more than a week, and it would sow a lot of division in the party at a critical time when you're in these first 100 days. Republicans in both chambers are trying to get stuff done, a reconciliation bill, stuff on the border, taxes, energy, and so it is something that Republican senators really do not want to do. They don't like, in general, to give up their advise and consent power, even for their own party leader like Donald Trump. And that right now, I don't think is a viable path for them to go. They're getting these nominees through fairly quickly. Yeah. Thune has been pretty aggressive about it. Tonight, they're keeping the chamber in until 10 or 11, I believe, to have another vote. And so, Democrats can slow down the process, but they can't stop it unless there are the votes to, defeat these nominees. So, yeah, the recess appointment route, I just don't see as a viable one. If it would come to the case where Kennedy loses in a floor vote, I think at that point, I'm not on the White House side, so I can't, speak as firmly about what Trump would do, but he would have to reassess and potentially just go a different route entirely, or put the pressure on whichever Republican senators defected.
Yeah.
Who would be in the pipeline? I know you're not, as you say, you're not a White House guy, but who do you think? Do you have any names of who might be in the pipeline? Should RFK Jr. not be confirmed?
That's a good question because, I think a lot of these nominees came as surprises to a lot of Republican senators. RFK was sort of new for a while that he had his eyes on the health policy route, but other nominees like Attorney General, when you had Matt Gaetz crop up, that was surprising. Even Pete Hegseth, who's now been confirmed when he was initially appointed, Republican senators weren't familiar with him or knew who he was. And so it's sort of a wild card, I think. There's no suggestion that Trump even has somebody in mind right now. He, for all intents and purposes, has been committed to getting RFK through. And at this point, I don't think Trump himself would perhaps have someone at top of mind.
Yeah. Ramsey, you wrote in the Washington Examiner, RFK Jr. first hearing takeaways. Mike Pence, former Vice President Mike Pence. Oh God, I hope that never happens. Mike Pence, has led a charge against RFK Jr. because of the abortion issue. And what RFK Jr. said during the confirmation hearing, I agree with President Trump that every abortion is a tragedy. I agree with him that we cannot be a moral nation if we have 1.2 million abortions a year. Well, the reality of it is, and you had all these Democrats, coming after him saying, oh, you're just going to follow the agenda of the president. I mean, that's his job, right? To follow the agenda that President Trump lays out for the cabinet position.
Yeah, that's generally, how cabinet nominees would respond. They serve at the pleasure and the direction of the president. The abortion issue is an interesting one because Kennedy in the past has always been more of a pro-choice person. It's something that Democrats brought up yesterday, and they sort of, brought some cheeky sarcasm into it, saying, they're glad to see Republicans supporting such a pro-choice cabinet nominee. And so, it's an area where him and Trump have perhaps had a little bit of daylight between them, but Kennedy basically said it's up to the states, like Trump has said, and he'll follow that directive. There was another policy arena, which is climate change, where Kennedy said that he had some daylight with the president on, and so those two things, abortion and climate change. It was interesting to see a little bit of a departure between the two, but Kennedy basically saying, we'll leave it up to the states, like Trump wants.
I mean, you continued in this article, you said that he fumbled on Medicare and Medicaid. How so?
Yeah, so that was actually Senator Bill Cassidy, who is a former physician, was pressing RFK on just certain things he'd like to see different, Medicare, Medicaid, or how he would handle them. And, Cassidy, again, is one of those key swing votes. So it was, notable that this was an issue he was pressing. These government-run healthcare programs cover tens of millions of Americans, so many people. And they're really convoluted programs. They have a lot of complaints about them. They're too expensive. They're not run well. They're not efficient. And as he was sort of working through the questions, RFK was mixing up some of the programs, Medicare, Medicaid, Medicare Advantage. And so there was some criticism in there, especially from, health policy industry folks, making the argument that if he doesn't know the intricacies of these different agencies and programs, how can he be expected to reform them given their just complexity and size?
Right.
So those are important areas that, important programs that I wouldn't be surprised if Collins and Murkowski press him further on today.
Yeah. I was taken aback with this exchange between Senator Warren and RFK Jr. I want to get your take after.
You financially down the line.
I'll comply with all the ethical guidelines.
That's not the question. You have said
You're asking me, Senator, you're asking me not to sue vaccine pharmaceutical companies. Yeah, you are. That's exactly what you're doing.
Look, no one should be.
Ramsey, is that what she was doing? She basically saying you can't sue these companies?
So she was raising some financial conflicts of interest that Kennedy may have in this role. He's made millions of dollars in the past few years from contingency and referral fees to law firms who end up bringing on clients that he refers and then suing pharmaceutical companies. He has an ethics agreement with the Office of Government Ethics that basically says he will still have a 10% stake in these fees, even as HHS secretary. So what I think they sort of got lost in sort of, the back and forth there. Basically, she was trying to get at is, how are you going to handle these conflicts when, you're managing, when you could be making money, but yet you're managing sort of the policies that could affect the outcome of your financial gain.
Yeah.
And that it is something that he has already had an agreement with the government ethics office on. We know how he would handle that because he stated in his disclosure forms. And that's the history of Kennedy. He is someone who has taken on these pharmaceutical companies a lot, vaccine, drugs, et cetera. And something he's made his name on. So it's not something that he plans to divest himself from.
Yeah. Ramsey, just looking ahead, I think they probably saved the last two controversial confirmation picks. I think. What will we get from the Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard's nomination and confirmation hearing? You think that's going to be explosive, and do you think they both make it out?
They're both going to be contentious. These are really important national security roles, FBI director and director of national intelligence. They also have some hurdles to clear with some of these swing vote Republicans. And right now, it's just going to be another really close vote. All at once, you have these three that are some of the toughest to get through, who are working their way through the process. And so you have the potential for it to get bogged down in the next few days or, 2 weeks or so with these nominees, just depending on support and where, these Republican senators land. But yeah, I expect them to be contentious. I would get out your popcorn, so to speak, for some of these because they are likely to be entertaining. Kash Patel is someone who has been a firebrand conservative media figure
Hit
the
list.
last several years. So, he's someone who knows how to entertain.
Yeah, and they're saying that he has this hit list of people that he's coming after, and I think they're afraid because remember Chuck Schumer said, "Don't mess with the intelligence agency. They know how to, use 6 ways to Sunday." So I guess they're afraid of it coming back to haunt them with the decisions that they have allowed during their Biden administration. I do believe so, sir. I think that's what's going to happen.
That actually might be a concerning point for some of those Republican holdouts. There might be some questions about retribution, so to speak. So that there's going to be some tension there, not only with Democrats, but potentially, some of those more centrist Republicans.
Now, how do you say your last name? Is it Touchberry or Touchberry?
Touchberry, just like it looks.
All right, we got to leave it there. Ramsey Touchberry. Follow him on Twitter or X at Ramsberry1. That's Ramsberry1. He's a congressional reporter for the Washington Examiner. Thanks so much for joining us on The Morning Answer with John and Charles.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, really appreciate it. Charles, I do think the popcorn is going to be out. I know a lot of people are saying Tulsi's probably going to be the tougher one, but with Cash, allegedly having that list, I think he's going to be the guy that they're really going to come after.
Yeah, they're going to come after him. But, I find it interesting that the timing of the release of the assassinations files is happening around the same time.
Yeah.
And that I'm sure senators are getting a preview